Cool. We are live on LinkedIn.
Okay. Okay, looks like we are live on LinkedIn. And looks like we are just starting out. We've got, of course, the illustrious Jerry Bailey on board. And we'll see as people start to join, we'll say hello to them. But this should be a good session. Looks like we had a good amount of registrations today, which will be great. It's always a popular topic.
It's still about 10 till.
Yeah, so we can talk about anything if we want. By the way, do we have the ability to edit these LinkedIn live sessions afterwards to cut off the beginning of this?
No, Michelle, we don't have that.
We don't have that ability.
Yet again.
Our LinkedIn rep.
Let's see if you can answer that.
We can just trim off the edges. We can't edit in the middle.
Well, I'll turn my video back on since we're not really live yet.
Oh, I like your new background.
And now I got a new
Yeah.
picture.
Very nice.
Yeah, except I can't get quite centered.
Yeah, Jerry, you're going to have to amp it up a little bit. So you need some artwork in the background, you
I
know.
know.
Or do one of those virtual backgrounds where you're on the beach or something.
Yeah, that's just the blinds in my office. I'll get some pyrotechnics for the next one. You know, let's really do it right.
There you go. That's a great. 4th of July is coming up, so that would be appropriate.
Yeah. Yeah. Small fire. Whoops, I'll be right back.
Set the neighbor's yard on fire.
I don't know why I'm laughing at that, but it's funny.
Well, I've done it. Then we did it on the 4th of July once.
Did you really?
Yes.
Oh my God.
And we were bad. We were bad because the neighbors on the other side of the people that's yard got fired, they got caught on fire. They didn't like each other, and they were all out of town and did not know it. And so they all blamed each other, and we didn't confess. I was very bad. I was young.
Perfect excuse. Hey, I'm looking at LinkedIn, and we have, when you look at the networking tab, we have a bunch of people that are already on. Are those people just really on, or are you folks there? I see John LaRocca. I see Doug Swafford. Thank you again, Doug, for joining us. If that's you, say hello. Oh, Maggie Romo has joined us from LK Plastics. We ran into her at Radiance, which was fantastic. John LaRocca's here. I didn't already say that. Oh, Julie Garner-Craddy is here, I think. At least I think they're here. I can't really tell. Can anybody actually tell? Are these people on the call, or just people that I invited?
I'm still showing 8 on the call.
So what about our LinkedIn Live?
They're invited people, Michelle.
They're invited. Oh, they're not here yet. Okay. Well, hopefully they'll show up. Yeah, Jerry, we're going to have to get you on the Radiance schedule for next year. We went to the one back in April, and it was at the Nissan Stadium, and it was amazing. It's incredible. You know, they keep renting out these big football stadiums, so the venues are fantastic. And there was a ton of interest.
I saw that. It looked great.
A lot of fun. Okay, the recording just started. Thank you for joining us, everyone, today. We are doing a topic today with PMSI and bankruptcy claims, understanding priority. And we have Jerry Bailey from NCS who is joining us today. And we're a little bit early on this, so we're going to wait a few more minutes as people join. We've got people joining on our LinkedIn live session, which we are live streaming this. And of course, we're recording this. And so if you have to miss any of this, don't worry, you will get a copy of the recording and within a couple days as we drill it down and do a little bit of editing. And we're thrilled to have Jerry join us again. He's been a popular presenter and always got historical tidbits, but also the latest and greatest take on what's happening. So he's really got his finger on the pulse of what's happening in this world, and we're always thrilled to have him present to our groups. So Jerry, thank you again for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me in. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's funny, a lot of us have been in this business for a long time. And I was looking at your LinkedIn profile. I was like, wow, 27 years at NCS almost. And,
Yeah.
You think you'd like learned it all or heard it all by now, but things keep changing. And
exactly.
Yeah, there's something current and relevant like every day that happens.
Oh, industries change. You know how it is. I mean, the risk level changes by industry. I was at a conference last week, and there were two ladies that did a panel presentation. And the one lady had been at her company as the director of credit for 35 years. And the lady she was doing it with had been with her company as the director of credit for 45 years. And I was like, oh my gosh, where do you see 80 years of experience out of two people anymore?
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. And there's been a lot of people that have retired, in the last 5 or 10 years, but there's still a lot of long-term folks that have been around and have got some great stories to tell. And some of these things that we think are old news, here we go again, right? With the recession that's in progress and things that are happening that we probably didn't think we'd see again in our lifetime, or I don't know, maybe some people did. It's kind of interesting to see how history repeats itself.
Yeah. It's going to be an interesting year, I think.
I think you're absolutely right. Lots of activity going on and lots of risk at play here. And it focuses again on the importance of the credit and collection department, and especially what you do, right? I mean, protecting yourself and I always think the interesting thing is how many companies, how many people in credit professions, they don't realize that they can even file a UCC. They just don't know, right? They think it's limited to certain categories, but it's it's open up really everything, I think, and it's a tool that should be so much more utilized. So if we can do our part to help people get some security and protect themselves, especially going into this next 6 to 12 months, I think we'll be doing folks a lot of favors. Yeah,
people go through and you see banks getting paid. We get 20 cents on our dollar, and there was a way to prevent it. I was talking to some people, and there was one of the comments was by a credit person: nothing gives me a louder voice at the table more than a downturn in the economy. And I was like, it's too bad, but that's the way that it goes.
Yeah, it's so true. Like all of a sudden now all eyes are on credit collections. Like, oh, we actually need the money from the sales that we collected. Wow, what a novel approach. All right. Well, so we've got some folks coming on board. We've got, Melissa Faulkner. Hello again, Melissa. Good to have you. Michael Hart, great to have you. Peter Cristofaro, fantastic. Glad to have you here as well. Cheryl Harrison, happy to have you. Got some new faces that we haven't, I think, seen before at some of our earlier presentations, and of course, some familiar ones. And as you all are joining, again, just to note, this is going to be recorded. We will send out a link to the recording later on. It will be on hayako.com for your folks and your team to view at a later date when it's convenient to them. But we want to make sure that today is a engaged, open conversation type of session. Jerry is a wealth of information, and he's happy to answer any questions as they come up. So don't hesitate. If you've got a question while we're going through the presentation, just pop a note in the chat. And if you're willing to come on board and show your face and have a little dialogue, we'll accommodate that too. I think it always makes it a little bit more interesting when we have live practitioners such as yourself involved in this, and really, asking some good questions that are relevant to what you're experiencing today. And again, Jerry's a great source for us. And we've got a few more minutes. Oh, actually, you know what? Looks like we're about 2 minutes after the hour. So it looks like we're probably getting ready to start. We've got, let's just see, we've got a good amount of folks on board, and we're live on LinkedIn. And let's go ahead and get started. Jerry, if you're ready, I'll kick it off.
I am.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you again for everyone for joining us today. This is one in a multiple series of events that is put on by Hayako Academy. And if you haven't yet explored what's on Hayako Academy, there is no better time than the present. We've been working diligently for the last 1.5 or 2 years, creating some incredible content from some folks that are in the industry that are tried and true, to have phenomenal experience, that some of them that you've known and have loved from other events in the past. And we're bringing in some new faces as well. So we're excited about what we're doing on Hayako. And there's currently, I'll tell you, probably about 120 courses broken up into about 1,500 video segments. So the idea behind Hayako is essentially learn fast. We're kind of positioning this as the YouTube of the credit and collection world. So if you've got a question about credit, collections, deductions, UCCs, bankruptcy, we have got a team of people that have created these programs that I think you'll find very valuable. We also are offering certificates of completion, and we'll show you some of those at the end of the program if we can. But heavily involved in our world, and we think you're going to enjoy what we've got coming up. We started Hayako with a small group, and I think we're now we've got 17,000 registered people. So our audience is growing. The content is being added every day. We're adding podcasts. We also, about 1.5 ago, 2 years ago, we purchased the Credit Today publication. And those of you who are familiar with Credit Today, it is about 24 years worth of just the cream of the crop, folks contributing information about our industry. And we're in the process of migrating all that content over to the hayako.com platform. We're also creating community forums. So there's an ability for you to reach out to your peers and ask questions in a real live environment. We also have that moderated by Richard Macias, who's one of the bankruptcy attorneys that's been involved in the credit collection world, the NACM world, the CRF world, et cetera, for decades. And he brings, keeps us out of hot water, if you will. So we've got a lot going. Podcasts, if I haven't mentioned, we're even launching a new category based on demand for soft skills, leadership skills, management skills, such as the like. So we're partnering with some incredible organizations that we believe and we know are adding value to what we do here in the educational world. So I wanted to again introduce Jerry Bailey, who really needs no introduction. If you've been around the block any, you've seen Jerry at NCS, and he's been presenting for multiple organizations over the years. Always does a great job, always full of the latest and greatest, also has a historical take on things. And he's going to fill us in on kind of the latest and greatest regarding bankruptcy and how to protect yourself. And please do feel, if you've got a question regarding a topic that he's talking about, feel free to pop a note in the chat box, and we're happy to answer those questions as they come in. And we do encourage that. And we'll have some time at the end as well. And with that, I think I've pretty much covered everything. So Jerry, are we want to pass it off to you?
Oh, okay. Thank you, Michelle. And thank you for the folks at Hayako for being nice and kind enough to invite me in to speak. I appreciate it. We appreciate the relationship. we have with High Radius and Hayako. Our topic, as you can see in front of us there, it's on priority, really. We're going to talk about priority in several different areas. One, what's the priority of the claims of the secured parties? Somebody has a blanket UCC filing. I have a PMSI. Who trumps who? What happens when there's bankruptcies? What's the priority of claims? But we're going to talk about priority of claims overall too, like the entire world of claims as creditors, unsecureds, secureds. You know, as we go through this, I've been traveling around doing presentations all over the country, and you know, we've had a pretty good panel of people doing these: economists, bankruptcy attorneys, and you know, I think it's going to be an interesting year. Michelle and I were talking before this. You know, there's a lot going on. We have, you know, we certainly have inflation. You know, gas prices are a concern. Interest rates have gone up, which means it's going to be more difficult for some of our customers to get money. And when they do, it's going to be more expensive. PPP loans are coming due. You know, many of these are going to be forgiven, but not all. And we know, look, if they're coming due, the people that do have to pay them back, they're going to pay the government before they're going to pay us as trade creditors.
Absolutely.
So it's very reasonable to assume that there's going to be more defaults coming up. And when that happens, what's the priority of your claim? Are you unsecured? Are you secured? Where are you in the priority ladder as a secured party? And what sort of collateral? You know, those things are going to be going on. And it's just the nature of the beast that I think, as I've been traveling around, I've been kind of polling the audiences. And boy, it's been, I would say, in the 85% category that people are at least in some sort of a heightened caution sense about extending their credit lines. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Here's our agenda. You know, security, what's that mean? Getting some sort of collateral against the credit line. Article 9, ways we can secure. What's the priority? But really, as we go through this, you know, it's responsibilities. It's, you know, there's going to be a lot going on. We know there's going to be defaults. You know, some of the bankruptcy attorneys I was talking with said their phone is already ringing more, and they're predicting a spike in bankruptcies about first quarter of 2023. So it's up to us. I mean, we're the stewards of our accounts receivable. It's up to us to know all of the tools that we can use to help put our companies in the best possible position to get paid, the best priority for getting paid, and increase the likelihood that we're coming out of this okay when these things happen. So, you know, there's lots of wonderful credit tools, and take advantage of all the sessions that Hayako has. It's our responsibility to know and understand all of them. You know, personal guarantees, letters of credit, joint check agreements, you know, all of those things. There's a place for all of them. 503B9 claims, reclamation. Our government provides a lot of wonderful tools for us through the Bankruptcy Code, 1, through the Uniform Commercial Code, 2, Mechanics Lien Statutes, 3. Again, it's our responsibility to understand them. Doesn't mean we're going to be using them all the time. It means if we need them, we need to have them in our credit toolbox so we know that we can execute them when that time comes. So it is our responsibility. Michelle and I were talking beforehand, you know, it was put to me by a credit person, and they said, boy, nothing gives me a louder voice at the table other than a downturn in the economy or a heightened sense of caution. And so now's our chance to shine. We can really make our companies more profitable, protect our AR, protect ourselves by making sure we are a priority when these claims are going to be retired. Now, we want to be secure, really. I mean, when we start out as creditors, we have 2 decisions to make. The first one is, are we going to give these people an open credit line or not? And then B is, if we decide, yes, we are we going to do that on a secured basis or an unsecured basis? And that essentially means, are we going to get some sort of collateral backing the credit line that we're extending? Now, we can do that a couple different ways. 1, we can have personal property pledged against our credit line. Personal property is the assets of our customer, their accounts receivable, their inventory, proceeds they realize for selling the inventory. That's what we have the opportunity to have pledged against our credit lines via the UCC process. That's our focus for today. The other way is real property. Real property means we've improved a piece of real property permanently. And the theory there is very simple. The owner should not retain the benefit of that improvement unless they pay us for it. And if they don't, then we have the chance, the opportunity to take collateral security against that piece of property to whatever extent we've improved that piece of property. Not our worry today. So we have these two ways. Really, there's three ways for us to attach and garnish assets of our customer when there's defaults. There's those two ways. And then the third way is to litigate, to sue and get a judgment. Now, of those ways, litigation is far and away the most expensive and the most time consuming. We've all gone through those situations where you sue the customer, it takes a couple of years to get on the docket, you finally get a judgment. And then when you do, you go through your post-judgment remedies and you still really can't collect anything. There's nothing there. And again, it took a long time and you spent a lot of money. Well, that's really the goal of this is let's try and establish the priority of our claims without all of us having to run to the courthouse and sue each other. And that's really what this whole UCC Article 9 thing was about. So we understand, we see the value of security. You know, when you look at banks, you understand how they associate the value of collateral or security. When you contrast the interest rates of the things that they do, you know, you look at mortgages and credit cards, you know, mortgages are 4% now, and credit cards are 5 or 6 times that. Why? Well, the bank's got a piece of property to repossess. They can sell it out and sell it off and come out whole, maybe even profitable. Credit cards, they're going down for the entire balance. They don't care because they're still very profitable because of the extreme interest charges that everyone is paying. So you see pretty clearly how banks associate the value of collateral. So how do we make ourselves a priority? Oh, we have our first poll. So our first poll is to all of you. Are you currently filing UCCs on selected customers? So it's a yes and no question. If you wouldn't mind giving us your feedback, we would appreciate it. I do not have access to the results, so. Okay, all right, so our results, 2 out of 3 of you are not, and 1 out of 3 of you are. So thank you for your participation. That gives us some insights. As we're going through too, Michelle mentioned up front, I think these presentations are always a little better when they kind of weave off on their own tangents. So please don't be shy. If you have questions, go to the chat and let us know, and we want to address them. Your question may encourage more questions and more people get answers. And everybody has their own separate situations as well too, that you may need, you know, answers for. Maybe I don't make something as clear as you'd like it. Please don't hesitate to ask me to, Jerry, can we go back over that? But really, we want to, you know, this is all about priority. You know, what happens when our customer defaults? There's going to be a priority of how they pay. Well, I learned very early in credit that the key of this is the problem with most customers is not they don't have any money. The problem with most customers is they have $10,000, but they owe 15 people $1,000 a piece. Our goal is to be one of the 10 of the 15. We want to make ourselves a payment priority for our customers. Now, when we look at bankruptcy, there is a pecking order. There is a priority of how claims are retired when there's bankruptcies. And that pecking order is in front of us right there. You see, the kings of the hill, the top of that ladder are the secured creditors. We've all gone through situations where we got 20 cents on the dollar, 15 cents on the dollar. Essentially what happened was we split up whatever was left over after all of those parties on that ladder got paid. You can see where we were in those situations. We were the pre-petition unsecured creditors. So below the secureds are the administrative priority claims. That is the people that administrate the bankruptcy, including the trustee. So as secured creditors, we're getting paid ahead of the trustee. We're getting paid ahead of the attorneys that administrate the bankruptcy. You've all seen critical vendors probably in bankruptcy cases. they fall into that second tier there. So they're below us as secured creditors. So we're ahead of all of those folks. And the lower level priority claims are like the employee wage, things like that. And then again, at the very bottom are the pre-petition unsecured creditors. So again, what's our priority? We want to push our priority as high as possible on that priority ladder. And again, we want to make sure we're as high a priority as possible. When our customer sits down and decides who they're going to pay and how much they're going to pay, we want to make sure we're at the top of the list with that. And we are definitely one of the 10 of the 15. So that's why we looked at the Uniform Commercial Code. This was put in place back in the 50s. The whole point of this was to promote commerce and give us a tool that would make us feel better about extending lines of credit. Recognize the financial landscape back then. Selling between states back in the 50s was very much like it is today between countries. There was a lot of apprehension. I'm here in Cleveland and my customers in Pennsylvania. They don't pay me. What do I do? Do I sue them? Well, where do I do that? And how do I do that? You know what? I know life in my living room. I understand the rules here. That just makes me feel more comfortable. I'm going to stay here. So that was the whole goal of the UCC, was to tear down those apprehensions, create an environment that fostered lending and promotes commerce. They've done well. Article 9 really did two different things. One, it said, we're going to establish a system where we establish the priority of our claims as creditors when we have to dismantle a business because it failed. That's A, by these UCC filings. And two, we're going to register them publicly so that mainly potential lenders coming in behind us deserve the right to do a search and see what's going on with that business. Are there encumbrances? How many? What's the nature of those encumbrances? And they would make better lending decisions and therefore minimize defaults and minimize the cost of debtor defaults. And again, they thought that would be better for everybody. If credit transactions are cheaper, we'll all sell more stuff on credit. So Article 9 was well written. It's been well used. It's been effective, and it's been imitated. Canada, Mexico, Australia, New Zealand, some of the South American countries, Puerto Rico are all getting secure transaction registries in their countries. They've seen that it really does grow. I was on a presentation, and the World Bank statistic is that countries that have secure transaction systems have GDPs of at least 15% higher than countries that do not. So that's what this is. Why do people do these things? Well, one, we're secured creditors. We have priority over the unsecureds in a Chapter 7, and we'll see how that works. With a purchase money security interest, we can create priority for ourselves ahead of other people who have filed UCCs in our specific goods. That's very valuable. We're part of the secured creditor team in a Chapter 11. Again, priority. When there's a Chapter 11, there's going to be a plan submitted on how they're going to reorganize, and it's going to call out pre-petition debt being retired. And it's going to call out two different classes of pre-petition debt also. One is going to be secured debt, the other is going to be unsecured. The secured team will have priority over the unsecureds. They're going to get more. We're protected from preferential payment claims. We've all gone through those in bankruptcies. Big value of a public record of debt in case the business is sold. We've seen a lot of these at NCS where our client was worried their customer was looking to sell the business. However, buyer beware, they did their search. They said, okay, UCC came up. You owe these people money. What are we doing? Are you paying it or are we paying it? And we'll recalculate the sale price. In many cases, they've gotten paid in full just because of that public record. And then public record of ownership of assets too. Maybe we're selling under consignment or we're warehousing goods somewhere where the stuff belongs to us, but it's somewhere else. We want to make sure people understand that. So that's why people do these things. Essentially, in the world of secure transactions, really as trade creditors, there's two different places, two different ways we would look to do UCC filings. One is called a blanket or a basic. They're synonymous. And the second type is called a purchase money security interest. We'll look at each. The blanket filings are called blanket filings because their priority stacks. The priority with blankets is pretty easy. First in time, first in right is the priority expression. Whoever files first gets paid first. Whoever files second gets paid second, and so on and so forth down the line. It's very simple. The date of the filings establishes the priority. The term blanket comes because that's what happens. This blanket filing lays down like a blanket over all of the customer's assets. This is what banks do. They file on all assets of the customer and they take their position and they get paid ahead of us because they file first. They file their first blanket. So that's the priority expression, first in time, first in right. So in a very simple example, you can see there we have 5 secured creditors on our little pyramid. Going down the line, the bank is owed 20, number 2 is owed 10, number 3 is owed 10, 4 is owed 5, and the 5th secured creditor is owed $10,000. And then we have several folks at the bottom that have sold as unsecured creditors. They said, we're good, open credit line, we're going to go ahead and roll the dice. What happens? Let's assume the debtor has $61,000 and they file bankruptcy. That's going to get liquidated, and down the line we're going to go. We're going to pay those claims in order of their filings. So here we go. Down the line, we'll pay down. Bank gets 20, 2 gets 10, the 3rd secure creditor gets their 10, 4th gets 5, the 5th secure creditor gets 10. That's a total of $55,000 paid out to the secured parties. That leaves $6,000 remaining. That $6,000 is going to get dispersed pro rata to all of the claims of the general unsecured creditors. So they're going to take the $6,000 divided by the total number of claims dollar wise, and that's where we're going to get our 10 cents on the dollar. So you can see, we could have captured that whole $6,000 just for ourselves ahead of all of the general unsecureds, even if we had done a blanket UCC filing. But it's a pretty simple priority, first in time, first in right, based on the date of the filings. And that's how the claims would be retired. Any questions on blanket UCC filings?
Jerry, I got a question, and maybe this is actually a poll question, but I'm curious, the companies that don't do UCC filings now, what is the reason? Is it they just aren't aware of it? They think it's cumbersome, expensive? What do you hear from people why they don't do it?
Lots of people don't know. Some people perceive it, my customer won't sign it, their bank won't let them. We run into that maybe 5% of the time where, then you have to make a decision about, okay, can we subordinate? Can we give less credit if we can't secure? But, those are the bigger objections of my competitors won't ask them to sign this, or my customer's bank won't let them. But very typically, we urge people to get the wording in their credit applications. Once they've had those signed, then they can go ahead and file and take advantage of it. And in our experience, again, if you send out 100, 5 people might push back and say no. So you get, the other 95, you have the opportunity if you wish.
Yeah, those are pretty good odds, I'd say, for something that's now a really simple process. Yeah.
So the PMSI is the second type of filing. A purchase money security interest was created for us as trade creditors to take first priority in our goods with the opportunity to repossess our goods ahead of everybody else when our customer defaults. And by everybody else, I mean all of the people who have sold to our customer on open credit terms, all of the people who have lent money to our customer, all of the people who have filed UCCs against our customer, including their bank. So all of those people that filed blanket UCCs, we can leapfrog them and jump to the front of the line on our specific goods by doing a purchase money security interest. Now, when we do that, we have to make sure we go through the priority rules to create priority in our goods. So who would have an interest in doing these? Well, if we sold some stuff on open terms, A, and B, we would wish to repossess it in the event our customer defaults, then this PMSI looks pretty good to us. How do we do this and take priority in our goods? Well, there's 2 different things. There's 2 different subcategories of goods under Article 9, inventory and equipment. And there are 2 different subcategories, and we establish priority in those 2 subcategories in 2 different ways. And the way we determine whether we're selling equipment or inventory is determined by what our customer does with the goods that we sell to them. If we sell goods to our customer and our customer is reselling those goods to other entities, other businesses, then it's defined as inventory under Article 9. And the way we establish priority is we must do a search, to find all of the other people that filed UCCs against that customer, and we then notify them that we are taking priority in our goods. And once we have proof of that notification, we have priority in our inventory. Equipment is another subcategory. That means our customer is not reselling the goods. They are using those goods in the course of their business. Perhaps I sell forklifts and they're using them to move things around their manufacturing facility. They're using them in the course of their business. The way you establish priority with equipment is we are bound by the 20-day rule. That tells us we need to do our UCC filing within 20 days of our customer's receipt of the equipment. If we miss, we still want to file, but we're risking priority. If a bank filed in front of us and we file on day 25 on our equipment, good chance the bank will have priority in our equipment ahead of us. So we want to hit that 20-day window. So inventory, our customer is reselling those goods. We search and we notify all of the other previously secured creditors. Equipment, our customer is using those goods in the course of their business. We need to get our filing done within 20 days of the customer's receipt of that equipment. Important priority rules to allow us to take first priority in our goods. What happens with our PMSI? Well, we added a sixth secured creditor to our little example there. We've assumed that we're the sixth secured creditor there, and we have $5,000 worth of equipment in our customer's place of business. Remember, our debtor was worth $61,000. Well, in this case, they still are. But the first thing that happens when there's a bankruptcy is we take our $5,000 worth of equipment out of the equation. Now, $61,000 becomes $56,000. And now it goes first in time, first and right. They take the 55 and pay down the line. But by having priority in our goods, we have that ability to repossess and take them out of the equation ahead of all the other assets getting liquidated and dispersed. So those of you, our second poll question, if you don't mind, we appreciate it. But those of you that are filing UCCs, are you generally doing blankets or purchase money security interests?
I think this is a good question too. And I always wonder, like, how do you determine which one you're going to do? And do you investigate all the other existing UCCs to see, is there a strategy behind what you choose?
Yeah. How many people are in front of me? It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah. So we've got a few more seconds up here. If we could get everyone to just click off one or the other, blanket or PMSI, that'll be great. And we'll get the results here shortly.
Okay, our results show us pretty similar to last one. 2 out of 3 are your filing PMSIs, good for you. And 1 out of 3 of you are filing blankets. So thank you for participating in the poll. We appreciate it. Back we go to the presentation. Okay, so why do we want to do this PMSI thing? What's the value? Well, one, resale. Can we sell our goods to other parties? If the goods that we're selling to customer A are the same goods we sell to customer B, C, D, E, and F, then resale looks pretty good. We can just push that stuff back in our distribution channel and resell it. Now, if that's not the case, resale is not real attractive. If the goods we make for customer A are only of use by customer A, well, then resale is not real attractive. Maybe can we scrap the stuff? Is there a point to it? Well, maybe that point is differentiating our receivables too, separating ourselves from the people who are not secured, and again, making ourselves one of the 10 of the 15. Well, I had this meeting with a company in Minnesota, and they made these little insignias for air conditioning companies, these little ceramic insignias on behalf of Lennox and Carrier and Trane. But they didn't sell them to Lennox and Carrier and Trane. They sold them to the people that made air conditioning sleeves. And the air conditioning sleeve people then branded the air conditioning sleeves with the appropriate insignias and sold them to Lennox and Carrier and Train. So that's what they did. They were having a miserable time getting paid by the air conditioning sleeve people. So we sat down and said, okay, what do you want to do? And they said, well, we want to put UCCs in place on these. But we were like, well, what are you going to do? You're going to do a PMSI? Boy, what are you going to do? Repossess it? Try and find somebody else named Lennox and sell it to them? It seemed like a spiteful repossession. But then we sat down and said, wait a minute, what if you guys do repossess this stuff? What happens? Well, we all know what our salespeople will say. They'll just go somewhere else and get it done. Okay, well, will they? Well, what's involved with that? Okay, so the air conditioning sleeve people are going to have to put the part out for spec, put it out for bid, get bids from new possible vendors, select a new vendor. That new vendor is going to have to ramp up production and produce something and actually ship it. So how long does that take? 3 weeks, 4 weeks? So what do you think? Like air conditioning sleeve people are going to go to Lennox or Carrier and say, hey, no biggie. We just can't ship anything for the next 3 or 4 weeks because we didn't pay little insignia people. I don't think so. I think that leverage makes me differentiated. It makes me a priority. It makes me one of the 10 of the 15. Maybe it makes me number one of the 15. So the ability to interrupt that company's business and their ability to generate profits, I think, is very valuable. This is another one I went through. This is close to home too. There's a sports bar by my house where my buddies and I go watch games and things. And I was traveling one day and my buddies called me and they said, hey, we just went to so-and-so. And we went in and they said, you know, they're not closed, but they couldn't serve beer, wine, or liquor to us. And I was like, wow, that's weird. Why'd they say that? And they said, well, they said it was a new owner. And he had said when he bought the place from the previous owner had some improvements done to the building. He had failed to pay the electrical contractor. The electrical contractor had filed a mechanics lien against the building. And because this mechanics lien was against the building, he could not renew his liquor license. And I knew all this. We had filed the mechanics lien here at NCS. And my buddies knew that too. And they're like, look, here's the point of the call. We can't drink beer, Jerry, and it's your fault. So I'm like, all right.
That's hilarious.
But I was like, all right, that didn't make sense to me because the mechanics lien had been in place for 3 years. So in Ohio, you have to renew your liquor license annually. So I thought that doesn't make any sense. So we did some investigating. What had happened was the new owner had borrowed a couple $1 million from the bank to run. The bank had said, okay, here's your money. Here's what we want as collateral. Give us your liquor license. We're going to secure ourselves with your liquor license as collateral. When they didn't pay, the bank said, give it up. Give us your liquor license. And I was like, what a brilliant technique. They don't want to run a sports bar. They don't want to sell the building. They want their money. So
Yeah,
if you
great
be
leverage.
a sports bar that can't sell beer, wine, or liquor, there's your place. So again, differentiate yourself and make yourself, one of the 10 of the 15, make yourself a priority for payment.
I think that's great.
Now,
we
how do we
got
become this?
we got two
that?
questions that come in. I don't know if you want to answer
Oh,
them
sure.
now. Okay,
Sure.
so we got Thomas Morrissey has a question. He said, if there's already a blanket filing out there, can I not file a PMSI?
No, that's the whole point of PMSIs generally. Because
Too late.
if there's no blankets in front of you, then you want to file a blanket because you will have priority in all the assets. When there is a blanket out there, that's when you want to file the PMSI because it allows you to move in front of the blanket filer on your specific goods. So that would be exactly when you would like to do that. Hope that
Awesome.
answers that for you.
I think so. So then we also have John LaRocca has joined us as well. We're happy to have him. He's got a question. He says, can you discuss when dealing with resellers taking a first position in inventory, how that reduces the reseller's ability to borrow against our secured inventory? In that case, it may be prudent to subordinate to their bank.
Yeah, I do a whole webinar on all of this. There's a lot of scenarios. What happens? One, the first thing is, are you providing new value or not? Am I bringing goods into the equation that were not at the customer's place of business when the bank did their loan, did their analysis, did their financial investigations, If I'm bringing new value, the bank shouldn't care. They never used my assets. If I'm replacing other inventory that was there, then that's going to be different. If the bank did use that inventory as part of their lending equation and that vendor is out and I'm now replacing that vendor, well, you're correct. That bank used that asset. They're probably going to want priority in it. And then it becomes a decision for me of how do I wish to do this? If the bank comes back and subordinates, one of the good things about this whole public record, and this is going to be a value going forward too, is it puts you in conversations you're not in as an unsecured creditor. And the first thing I always urge people is, look, just tell the bank, okay, let's talk about it, but let's all turn our cards over here. Bank, tell me how much you have in this, how much skin do you have in the game? And here's what I have. Because we run into conversations where, one of our clients is asked to subordinate, but they have $1 million worth of inventory in the customer's place of business, and the bank's coming in with a $100,000 revolving line of credit. And they're like, we're not subordinating, we have 10 times the risk. Now, if it's the other way around, you're probably going to subordinate. You want that cash in there to make the customer as strong as possible. So then, depending on that. So again, you're going to find things out. Is a new bank coming in and asking you to subordinate or terminate? Why is there a new bank? That's interesting to me. That'd be good information.
Totally.
And if no, they want me to subordinate. All right, does my $50,000 credit line now become $40,000 because maybe I'm not quite as comfortable? That's all part of the business decisions you have to make when these things happen as you go forward. So hopefully that covers and answers what you were asking. If not, let me know. Other
Excellent.
questions?
So far, so good. Keep rolling.
Okay, good. Thank you for the questions. It's always so much better. Good questions too. How to become the secured creditor person? All right, this is the you cannot have one without the other slide. One is a security agreement. You have to have signed. This is consensual security. I got to get something that says I hereby grant you the security interest. Second is the financing statement. I got to get the public record. As I said, there's a public registration, an important part of this. That's what I have to do. I have to file the UCC1. I have to do each of these. I can't get a security agreement signed and never file the UCC1 and think I'm perfected. I'm not. And conversely, I can't just go filing UCC1s against customers if I haven't properly gotten the security wording, the granting clause, a security agreement signed. So both have to be present. The security agreement is first. It's a contract, spells out terms and conditions, can be a standalone agreement, doesn't have to be. Lots of people like to present a standalone agreement. They feel it conveys a larger obligation to the customer to pay them. Other people don't. Other people are like, we're already getting an agreement signed. We have our customer sign a dealer agreement. Let's just put the wording in there. Lots of people do this. This is very popular now. They put the wording in their credit app. Now, once the customer signs the credit app, they have been properly granted the secured interest. They don't have to file, but if they wish to, they need to. And I would urge all of you, if you need help with this, let me know. I have too many conversations with people where the conversations are, gee, my debtor's out to 90 days. I fear they're going to file bankruptcy. I want to take a secured position. How do I do that? And they haven't gotten anything signed that grants them that security. And the customer's not going to sign anything new because of the situation. So their hands are tied. So I urge people, get the wording in your credit app. Again, it doesn't mean you have to file. It means you can if you wish. And when you run into those situations, you have that opportunity. So somewhere we have to get this agreement signed. Then we have to make the public record. The financing statement is in effect for 5 years. At the end of 4.5 years, we have a 6-month period to renew or continue the filing for a new 5-year period. We don't need the customer's involvement at that point. Once they've signed that security agreement initially, we're good. We only file one time based on where our customer is located. They're located, if they're registered, based on their state of registration. So again, they could be right next to me here in Cleveland. However, if they're incorporated in Delaware, that's where I'm going to file, is in Delaware. This is the public record. Again, some of the previous conversation, it puts me in conversations I'm not in if I'm not secured and I haven't made made this public record. The value of that coming up, I think, is important. There is some nuancy stuff to this. These are filed, with the Secretary of State's in their computer systems. And, there's nuance to that. We're talking different computer systems in different states. And that's the key. If there's a bankruptcy, how are they going to find my filing? They're going to do a search using the standard search logic in that Secretary of State's computer system. So what comes up under that search, from Ohio to Pennsylvania can be very different. You folks think of, when you look something up in your AR system, do you look up ABC company or A period, B period, C period? And that affects it. If it does not come up in that search, then typically you're going to be deemed to be seriously misleading, which means you're not secured. So that's how we do all this. The question, how many of you are doing business in Canada? Canada has the Personal Property Security Act. It's very similar to our Article 9. So let's poll. Are any of you filing up there under the PPSA? All the things we need to do down here, we can do in Canada as well. But we can establish priority, the same thing, same steps. But just curious as to if anybody is.
And Jerry, are there, how much different are the forms for filing a UCC internationally versus in the US? Could you use a US form, or they have a lot of strict guidelines about you must use our country?
Yeah, you're up there, you file with each province. So
Okay.
you're going into the website and however they've structured it, versus down here with the states. Internationally, Mexico's is very different. They have a good filing system, the RUG, but it's different than ours. Australia and New Zealand have very similar filing systems to ours. And the progression really was we created ours. Canada created the PPSA, which was very similar to ours. And Australia and New Zealand mimicked Canada's PPSA. So I did not notice whether anybody was the results. Did you notice?
Yes, we had 24% said yes, they are using, they are filing in Canada. 76%.
Good for
Yeah.
you. Okay, thank you. Thanks everyone for participating in that. Okay. All right, back to presentations. All right, so where do I look to do this? How do I look to do this? We're credit people. We prefer to be secured in every customer ever. And sales would prefer that, they take the letters U, C, and C out of the language. So where do we do this? Well, when you start to think about it, one, you got to realize there's two different arenas we have. One are new customers that we're entertaining, and two is our base of existing. And they're different. New customers, I think it's a little easier. With new customers, you can always play it off as, the threshold, and maybe that's how you do it. Most of the people we deal with either establish a threshold if their credit line is over that, or they set some sort of a credit scoring model. And if it falls outside of that credit score or that credit model, that's where they secure. So maybe you can have up to $25,000 on an unsecured basis. Anything over, we're going to require security. Or again, their credit score falls out of that. Maybe it allows us to get them, credit approved more quickly. Maybe part of discounting is the prerequisite to be eligible is you have to grant us security, and then we'll look into giving you the 2% 10, net 30. So those are some of the ways with new customers. Existing, first of all, what are some of the red flags? If you have a customer that's paid you like clockwork for 20 years, you're not going to consider this. That would be crazy. However, not everybody pays us like clockwork for 20 years. So one, are you getting NSF checks, payments that aren't honored? That's a red flag. A negative change in their credit score, that would put up a red flag. If I hear rumors of ownership or management changes, maybe I want to, bolster my position and strengthen it. Their customers' financials are declining. If there's a change in purchasing volume, really one way or another, maybe that's where I look to. If the customer requests extended terms, our terms are net 30, we need net 60. Okay, in order for that, then we need security. The customer has passed terms or asked for more time to pay. They're in trouble. Maybe that's how we solve that. If they're constantly banging up against their credit limit, to me, that's a really easy fix. If I'm putting people on credit hold because their credit line doesn't merit how much they want to buy, that's not a good solution for me. It just means people want to buy more stuff from me and I can't get it to them. So maybe my solution is, look, let's increase your credit line. And my solution is on my end, we're going to file a UCC. And maybe you do that anytime you restructure debt too. And this is something we're going to see coming up in the next year. And there's going to be more defaults. What happens? Look, I owe you $60,000. Can I pay you $5,000 a month for the next 12 months? And, many good customers, we're going to consider it. So, okay, we decide, yes, we're going to get an installment note in place. Hopefully we're getting installment notes in place. But what is the installment note really? Does it make me secured? The answer is it does not. It's a reaffirmation of the debt. It's a new schedule of how payments are going to be made. If there's a bankruptcy, I'm still not secured. I can be, though. You can put security wording into your promissory note, or you just attach the promissory note or call out collateral in your blanket filing as promissory notes. And then we are secured. I think this is one of the better no-brainer times to take security. We're looking to help the customer. Look, we don't want to carry your money for 12 months, but we're going to do it. But this is one of the conditions. So again, if you need help with that, let me know. I can get you wording for that. So, again, financials are declining. You get a really large order from a customer. Those are some opportunities with existing companies. But really, it was put to me brilliantly in a presentation I was doing where, there's several people from the same company. And one of the ladies was working for the director of credit and asked her, when do we look to do this? And her answer was so simple and so perfect. And she said, here's when we look to do this. Anytime somebody asks for a favor. And I was like, you're right. We want to do this. Business as usual. Let's carry on.
Great advice.
All right. Yeah. She was obviously much smarter than I am. All right. What do we do? How do I make myself a priority? I have my UCC. I have my purchase money security interest. Now, how do I use this thing? The customer has defaulted. Well, all right. I have a PMSI in place. I have first rights in my goods. Do I wish to take them back? Well, I don't know. Maybe I do. Maybe I don't. Do I want to get paid? Absolutely. I want to get my money. So how can I use this to make me an ultimate priority for payment by my customer? Well, let's look. First of all, Article 9 outlines what we have to do, and we're going to use these steps to create a priority for them to pay us ahead of everybody else. The first thing, we're going to send them a letter, and we're going to dress it up, certified, registered, where one, we have to declare them in default. Look, the security agreement says default consists of non-payment when due. Terms of 30, you're at 45. We're declaring you in default. And we also got to tell them, look, cease and desist. If it's inventory, stop selling the inventory. If it's equipment, unplug it and stop using it. And then give them a cure period. The courts love a cure period of 10 days. We'll be over in 10 days and we're going to repossess our goods. And then, we've set a date and time for repossession. We can tell them they have to have everything organized and waiting for us. Doesn't mean they will. But this is one of the steps, too, that I'm playing as a heavy to make me a priority for payment. Article 9 tells us that if I'm going to repossess my goods, one of the things I have to do is send out a notice of disposition of collateral to all of the other secured parties. That means I'm going to tell them, look, I'm taking my stuff back and I'm going to sell it off. And I have to notify you. Well, guess who that's going to start with? That means I have to notify their bank that, look, I'm pulling my UCC and I'm repossessing my goods. So again, I'm going to play that heavy. In my demand letter, I'm going to, focus on that and accentuate that. In a collection call, I'm going to drive that and stress that to the debtor too, to say, look, here's the next step. I have to do this. And this is going to go to your bank. I don't know how they're going to react. They find out I'm pulling my UCC. They may pull their UCC. They may pull your financing, but it's going to happen unless you get some money to me. Hopefully that gets me paid. And that is enough to make them think, man, I got to get some money for Jerry. I need to find a way to pay him. If not, now I have priority rights in my goods, and I'm going to go ahead and enact my rights in my goods, which means I can repossess. Article 9 tells me I can use self-help. Self-help means I can go get my goods myself. I don't need the courts. I don't need the sheriff. I can go get my goods as long as it's not a breach of the peace. So the customer tells me, like, sure, come on over, I'll meet you with a shotgun. Well, that's probably a breach of the peace. However, most of the time they're embarrassed about the situation. I'm going to use my self-help. Now, interestingly, this is where you can tell why Article 9 is written by politicians. You cannot breach the peace, but Article 9 says recovery through stealth or deception is permitted. So we encourage lying to people, but no breach of the peace. Okay?
That's hilarious. Do you have any stories? I'm sure you do, of crazy things that have happened.
Oh God,
Stealth or deception.
Oh, tons and tons. In one of my presentations, I have a whole list of pages of what is a breach of the peace, and some of it's hilarious. But so now, okay, I'm going to. All right, I take my goods back, and what do I do with them? How do I pay out the proceeds? Well, first, I have to pay any repossession and storage costs. I may not have those costs. For repossession, that only means that I have to lease a truck from somebody. I would have to pay them. Do I have to rent a warehouse? I would have to pay them. If I use my own truck and I brought them back to my plant, that cost goes away. And then next would be attorney fees. But if it was self-help, I didn't need an attorney. I just went and got my stuff, so I don't need that. But if I did need to use an attorney, they get paid next. And then satisfy my level of indebtedness. I take whatever I am owed. And then if there's anything left over, I then remit that to the other secured parties in order of their filings in that collateral. So that's how I pay this stuff out. But that's really how I use this to make myself a priority. First of all, sending that letter, declaring them in default, letting them know I'm going to come and take my goods, and I have to send out this notice of disposition to all of the other secured parties. Hopefully that makes me a priority and gets me paid. Now, another way too, what I just spoke of was tangible goods. That's, it's much easier for Article 9 with tangible goods. Most of the time I'm selling goods that are going to have my brand name on it. Everybody's going to know what they are. I've sent these notification letters out. Look, I'm taking priority in all the widgets branded ABC. So everybody knows what my stuff is. I can go get it back. Intangible is not quite the same. Disposition of intangible collateral is different. Intangible collateral is cash, accounts, payments, general intangibles, payment intangibles. That's what I'm looking. I apologize. The slide should say intangible collateral, but that's much more difficult. I can't go to my customer's place bank and wait for checks to roll in and grab them and run. That would be nice, but we cannot do that. So how can I use this? Maybe the inventory is gone. What am I looking to? I'm looking to proceeds and accounts receivable now. And Article 9 did a nice job here. It said, okay, we're going to open up some protections for you for intangible collateral. And what it did was it said, we're going to put this section 9607 in, and 9607 says, upon default, a secured party may notify an account debtor to pay the account directly to the secured party and not the debtor. So that means if I am selling stuff to Michelle and Michelle is selling it to her customers and Michelle is not paying me, I can instruct Michelle to have her customers remit directly to me. And it also says, in addition, the secured party may collect proceeds to which it is entitled and may commence legal action against third parties to collect accounts. So that means not only can I instruct Michelle to have her customers to remit directly to me, if they do not, I can sue her customers. Now, again, am I going to do that? I don't know. Maybe if it gets bad, I will. We've seen lots of collections with this at NCS where, we've been able to use this. But am I going to use this to get paid? Absolutely. I'm copying section 9607 out of Article 9. I'm pasting it in my email. I'm sending my security agreement. And again, I'm putting, registered, certified, what have you, of look, here's what's going on. This is what Article 9 entitles me to do. This is the security agreement you've signed. You're in default. Please instruct your customers to remit directly to me. And if they do not, by July the 10th, I'm going to begin legal action against your customers. again, I'm guessing Michelle or whoever it is going to say, holy crap, I don't want Jerry doing this to my customers. That's going to ruin my business. I need to find some money for Jerry and get him paid. So again, a really good way to use Article 9 to make me a priority for payment. Even when I can't go repossess my goods, I can use this on payment intangibles. And again, does this make me one of the 10 of the 15? I think so. Again, maybe it makes me one of the 15, but that's what the code provides for us. That's my topics. I believe we have some more. I see some chats. I don't know if there's more questions.
Yeah, this would be a great time if anyone has some questions. Go ahead and throw them in the chat box, either on LinkedIn or here on our Zoom call. And while we're kind of waiting for a few more questions to come in, if anybody has any, one of the things that I just looked up, for those of you who have not yet gone to the Hayako Academy website, Jerry has 2 other pre-recorded sessions that he did for us previously. And so if you want to really kind of refresh your mind or your team's mind on the topic, you can literally go to our site and search by Jerry Bailey and you'll find his courses. You can also search by just the topic of UCC. And I just did that real quick and I found 9 total courses that we have with folks such as Richard Macias, who talks about consignment and reclamation rights. Also, we had a recent session with Wanda Borges and Bill Norton. We've got one from Scott Blakely. So there's a lot of information that's out there, and this whole topic can be very complex. And I think Jerry does such a fabulous job of bringing it down to very understandable language to figure out how do you move forward. What do you do when you encounter challenges? And I would definitely encourage folks to contact Jerry directly. I'm sure he'll be happy to take your message on LinkedIn or directly. I'm sure we've got his contact information here too. Let's see. What else do we have here? Carrie Bradley. Thank you, Carrie. Thank you for your joining us, and hope your team is on as well. And let's see if we had any other questions come in.
Yeah, and those people you just mentioned, Michelle, those are all really great resources in the industry. So people, please take advantage of what's out there. Again, it's good advice from really great resources.
Yeah, super. Okay, here's another question that came in. Is it possible to cancel the PMSI, and what steps are necessary?
Yes, you've gotten your security agreement signed, you've filed your financing statement, you've notified everybody. Now the customer pays off their obligation. You're not going to work with them anymore. Or maybe it's consignment and you're done with that. You can always terminate a UCC filing, and you go out. You go out and just terminate that, and then it's done. It's no longer effective. So yes, you can cancel the PMSI.
Okay, so what if the debtor has already sold the goods and you hold a PMSI?
If the debtor has already sold the goods, then your PMSI automatically attaches to proceeds realized for the sale of the goods. So you would have first right in whatever. If you sold them $50,000 worth of stuff and they sold that they got $70,000 for selling that, then you would have first rights in $70,000 worth of proceeds that your customer realized for the sale of that stuff. Over and above that, you just switch assets. You go from the tangible good, your inventory, to proceeds and accounts receivable, and you look to those to be made whole.
Makes sense. Another question. Can I secure future shipments that will take priority over existing security interests?
Yes, because there's a clause that you're going to put in your collateral description. We didn't really talk about collateral descriptions today, but we want the hereafter acquired property clause. So whenever I'm calling this out, I'm going to say all goods sold, all inventory, equipment, and goods sold now owned and hereafter acquired. And that's going to cover everything. And the way we want to write our collateral description for our inventory too, we want to make sure that inventory collateral description allows for the inventory to roll over. Like if I'm selling inventory and I'm going to be reshipping every 2 weeks, I don't want to use serial numbers because they're going to change. And I would have to amend the filing every 2 weeks. So I want to use collateral descriptions more like all of the widgets sold, including but not limited to those bearing the ABC brand name. And that way, we haven't put a quantity in, we haven't put serial numbers in, we can continue to ship and roll that inventory over, and we're secured in anything that goes in there subsequently too.
Okay, I have another question that I hear a lot is, I remember back in the day when I was actually working at Experian and we started loading UCC filings. And we ended up having to create a category called cautionary UCC filings versus standard UCC filings. And like when you mentioned hereafter acquired property, right? So can you explain to our audience, like what would be a UCC that's like, oh, okay, that's just regular with the bank, there's nothing to be concerned about, versus ones that you really should probably take a deeper look at because it's not just a copier or a backhoe. It's something that has a larger application.
To me, as I look, if I'm a trade creditor and I'm looking to see at the body of UCC filings done against my customer, to me, my concerns are how many of those filings are attaching inventory, accounts receivable, and proceeds, because those are the larger assets. If I see a filing against a piece of equipment or a leasing filing, which is going against a specific piece of equipment, I don't care about that, because that's just for that specific piece of equipment. If there's a default, they'll take that back. A warehousing filing, a tooling or die filing, consignment, I'm not as concerned about those. Again, they don't touch inventory, AR, and proceeds. That's what I'm worried. If I do a search and there's 10 filings out there, and one of those filings attaches inventory, AR, and proceeds, well, then I'm in second spot and I feel pretty good. If I'm in third spot, I still feel okay. If I'm in seventh spot and, now all of a sudden 6 of those filings are attaching inventory, AR, and proceeds, I'm in seventh spot, I don't feel very good. That stuff's not going to make it down to me. So those are really the things to look to when you're either reading a credit report or you do your search. If you do a UCC search to determine what collateral is attached, you have to do a search with copies, and it will show you exactly what collateral is attached, and you can then make better lending decisions.
That's great. And Jerry, I assume that NCS can help folks that are on our call actually do a search in all 50 states and other territories or beyond.
Yes, anybody, we take care of everything. If you want to do a blanket filing, we'll file the financing statement. We'll make sure it's done in accordance with the standard search logic so that it comes up for that given state, which again can be a little nuancy. If it's a PMSI and inventory, we'll file the financing statement. We'll do the search to see who else needs notified. We'll send the notifications out for you. We'll store everything online for you to download whenever you wish. We'll tell you when your filing's coming up for renewal at the end of the 4.5 years. If you just would like us to do a search, we can do that too. So, and really, if you have questions like, gee, does this situation, would a UCC help? Please don't hesitate to contact me. I would love to talk to you. And sometimes the answer is going to be, no, really it won't. Sometimes it will be, yeah, I think it would make sense, but I'm more than willing to help you. My information is, my email address is the letter J, BAILEY @NCS Credit. So please feel free to, to contact me.
Just put your email in the chat as well.
Okay.
I just put mine in the chat as well. I also can encourage all of you to connect with Jerry directly on LinkedIn. If you haven't already, again, he posts some great stuff. He's involved in a lot of trainings out there, conversations, panels, and he really is a phenomenal resource. And we're very happy to have him. We're lucky to have him as part of our audience and our partnership here. Okay.
And thank you, Michelle. I appreciate, Hayako inviting me in. Hopefully the folks sitting in got some value, and I believe you have, you're looking for some feedback.
Yes, please. So if you all would just take a couple seconds, there should be a link in the chat box. Give us some feedback about the session. And also, we're always open to additional ideas on what else do you need? What kind of training information sessions can we help you with? I know free is one of the most happy words that people hear. And but I want to tell you that on the hayako.com site, we do have a ton of information. It is complimentary. And just because a lot of it's free doesn't mean it doesn't have high value. We've got some phenomenal speakers, Jerry being just one of them. But we also do have some sessions that we did last year. We'll be doing coming up later this year, where we're going to have some more personalized one-on-one workshops. Those will be a little bit more in-depth breakout rooms. So we're going in that direction where we want to do some deeper dives on some of this stuff, on some courses that we go into a little bit more detail. You can actually talk about your specific situation. And hopefully, I'm sure Jerry will be a part of that. So again, encourage you all to take a look at that. Connect with Jerry, connect with me, connect with our LinkedIn presence, Hayako Academy on LinkedIn as well, just so you don't miss out on the different sessions. And of course, if you can't make it live, we'll always send you a link to the recording after we're done. Okay, looks like we've got. That's it. I think we're good.
Okay.
Great.
Right.
Thank you again, Jerry. Thanks to everybody on the call. Have a great week, and we will see you at our next event.
Thank you.